All right, welcome back to our Survivor Indianapolis Season 5 postseason interviews. I don't know what we're going to call this yet, but something. So we have Chris and Leah Henderson here with us, our second place and fourth place finishers. So let's just dive into your games. The whole point of these interviews is to try to get some extra information, background on some things, because the video can only capture so much. Unfortunately for us, we don't have the production crew that the real deal has, or else we would catch everything. Can't do that. So we'll start off with you, Chris. And in the early rounds, in the editing, Alex and I both noticed what seems, and if we're wrong, please tell us, but it seemed like you would have an idea for who you wanted to vote for, and we kind of talked to other people about what they wanted to do, but it wasn't like you were coming together with other people. Is that how
Right.
it was?
Yes, that's how I intended for it to be anyway.
So why?
I think that my personality lends itself to be domineering and overbearing. And so I determined to not be that person early on for a couple of reasons. Number one, to protect me from getting slayed or having a target on me, which happened later when I did turn a little domineering. But yeah, that was my goal, is to just try and be all things to all men and go under the radar and not be a real force or a real overbearing kind of thing.
Makes sense. So when you happened to vote for Cameron at your first tribal council, did you know he was going to get that many votes, or did you just that's who you wanted to vote for?
No, I think it was like Cameron made sense in my mind, and apparently it made sense in everybody's mind.
Yeah. So,
or at least a good majority.
It was almost enough. He was one vote from being voted out at his first tribal council, which is a cool story for him. But for you, your game kind of comes to a head at the swap, which is where you get paired up with Neil and Sonia and Eli and Cameron. And at that point, when you first see this is your team, what was your first reaction, your first feelings at seeing this is the people I'm with now?
Okay. We'll see how this goes. That was kind of my because it was clear I was the outsider.
Yeah.
And so I was a little skeptical. I didn't think it would take much to turn Sonia from Neil.
You were right.
No, it didn't take. In fact, Neil helped us all out.
Yeah, so. He did. So did you ever consider in that moment, as so you get your swap tribes, you see that it's potentially 2-2, and then you was either the odd man out or the swing vote between the two pairs or whatever. And you knew that Leah had been sent to Vantage Island. She'd be joining the losing team. Did you consider throwing the challenge to try to gain her as an ally? Because she would join your team if you guys had lost that challenge.
Which challenge was it?
It was the one with the beanbags and
balance beam and the toss
badminton racket, which you crushed at the end, and you were in the position to lose it. Yeah, you could have thrown.
Yeah, I was not that strategic.
Yeah, not in the beginning at least.
That was I didn't want to go back to another tribal council, and so I was like, winners don't go to tribal council. Sign me up.
It makes sense because, especially once you got the lead in that challenge, it was kind of like, we're in the lead. I can just keep doing because you were in the clutch position, whatever you want to call that. So then you guys do lose the challenge eventually, and you had immunity that round. That was the round where you did the axe throwing, and both teams went to tribal council. You had individual immunity. Did you realize that if you hadn't won, you might have gotten voted out?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you never know. But based off of what I've heard in the interviews and that kind of thing, it does seem like that was at least what Eli and Cameron wanted to do. And it wouldn't have taken much to get Neil on their side. So that's pretty clutch there for that one. And I'll come back to more.
There were a few immunities that I was like, I have to have these.
Several.
And that was the beginning of those.
You said this morning you said a few was 3, which I definitely amened. But That was there was at least three that you clutched out there. So then after the swap, you make it through the swap, you win a challenge as a tribe, you win a challenge as an individual. Then you get to the merge, and we don't have a ton of video from when you get voted out. So did you think it was just like a matter of I've won a couple of challenges and they just saw me as a threat? Or what do you think happened? Or what do you think happened to get you voted off? And what were they telling you was going to happen? That obviously was not true.
I don't remember what they told me was going to happen.
Yeah.
I do feel like at that point, I felt the heat.
Yeah.
I felt the target, and I was like, well, happy trails to you. That's how I felt.
So yeah, that was it because it was one of the few votes that was pretty lopsided in terms of it was most of the people were voting for you. So then you get the returning player challenge almost immediately. Um, how did you feel about that challenge, and what do you think helped you win for the guys in that challenge?
Uh, Dabs Elementary and Bonnet Junior High test taking. I didn't
Yeah,
watch. I never watched one of them survival shows before. And there I was in the jungles of Fortville looking for like,
yeah,
okay, what are the actual things here? I had known of Survivor,
yeah.
so I think I only missed one my first go round, and if I'm not mistaken, my legs and my diaphragm told me that I had to run back twice,
Yeah, I think
and
so.
it's like, yeah, so uh, Bonnet and Dabs, and then sheer speed.
Yeah.
I literally, it's one of those things where like after you're done, you're ready to just go off into the woods and
Sit in a hammock.
yeah, but I couldn't do that. I had to come right back out. So it was
That's
fun.
right. So you say in your first exit interview out of the two you had, uh, you say that if I come back in, you're going to see a different player. So what was your strategy once you did get back into the game?
Take no prisoners. 100%.
Yeah.
A hundred
So
percent. I had tried the be all things to all men. Uh,
yeah.
it didn't work, and I came back swinging for everybody
Uh,
except us.
how
I didn't
how
swing for them.
well yes. So how quickly did that come to be a thing? Like was that
What
pretty
thing?
best class? Exactly. You can play coy if you want, but
I'm unsure what you speak
it's
of.
in the videos, so uh there was the challenge though. You say that you felt like you need to win all these challenges. You felt like you had to take no prisoners. But it appears on the video at least, and from my point of view being there, that you maybe didn't give 100% in the sumo challenge against Cameron. What do you think about that?
uh, I don't remember why I didn't, but I'm certain that I didn't. I think was that an immunity challenge?
Yeah.
Okay,
It was the round where you guys voted out. I want to say Annie.
Andy Sargent.
I believe it was when Annie got voted off because you guys had voted off Drew after the merge after you got back in, and you were
Who was it?
immune then.
Drew. Drew.
Drew got
Okay.
voted off, and then the next challenge you lose, and you it seems like you didn't maybe totally give your best effort there. Um, Cameron wins, and they guys vote off Annie.
At that point, I think I needed Cameron as an ally, and
Yeah,
so it was kind of like I'm gonna play patty cake.
yeah,
And again, I go back to that domineering thing. Like I'm a 40-year-old man. I don't want to be out there wrestling or beating, like it like I don't know. There it was just I was like, I'm not gonna do this.
sure,
I'm gonna we'll make it, but it'll be okay.
sure. So at this point,
And he was on my original team.
yes, yes. So it made
So
sense for
I
you to want to
had
protect
that
him.
going with for me also.
Yeah. So from the video, it looks like, and say whatever you want, but it looks like you guys had kind of two different alliances. And once Drew was gone, then you had a 4-3 lead on your original tribe, Shivway, Blue Tribe, had a 4-3 advantage over Siakam. But then you also had this best class alliance of four that was also had a 4-3 advantage over whoever else was not in that alliance. So at that point, you'd also do win Final Six and Final Five immunities. Did you think that they would have voted you out if you had not won one of those?
I think it's possible, yes, because it would have. Actually, no. I don't think. I don't know.
I think that just helped us get out whoever we needed
Correct.
out at the time.
Adrian did act kind of like she wasn't sure if she could trust you guys at 5, which is why I asked, because the reason as part of why I asked that, because Adrian was like, I'm not. She started to feel like maybe you guys might come for her instead of voting off Cameron at 5, because Chris, you were immune, and Lee, you had the idol. So she was like, it's either Cameron or it's gonna be me or Moretta. So she was starting to feel a little panicky, but she didn't really have any other options because of the fact that you had the necklace and Leah had an idol. So I was just thinking maybe if you didn't have that necklace, she might have an opportunity.
You're saying Adrian felt?
Yes.
That's funny.
Yes.
Because
You'll see it in the video.
Best class actually formed when Adrian and I were out.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in the hammock. They're over there doing the pickle challenge. I'm yelling trash talk to them, and I'm like,
from the comfort of his hammock.
From the comfort of my hammock, and I'm like, at that point, like domineering Chris is starting to come out. My wife's not around to tell me, "Hey, Chris, be quiet. It'll be okay."
Your wife is trying to eat pickles really fast.
You're gonna hurt their feelings, and I'm like, I don't care if their feelings are hurt. They voted me off. They deserve to have hurt feelings, in my opinion. But I told Adrian, sitting in the hammock, I said, Adrian, if there's a return challenge, you and me get in, and it's best class to the end.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you hear.
Cool. And I mean that
was
held through.
So it's a little shocking. I'm wondering how much Adrian was like truly. I can't wait to see her interview.
Yeah.
Like, was she truly? Or
she was talking to nobody. She was talking to the camera, and it was confessionals. And she was like, "Chris gave me a look, and I think I'm going to be voted off now." And it was so I don't know if she was just feeling paranoid because it was getting down to it, but we'll see when we talk to her. So you talk about the best class getting down to Final Four, and then obviously at that point it's a matter of like, you would have had to vote off Leah in order to betray that, in order to keep the best class alliance. So the fact that you voted with Leah against Adrian, is that like even beyond just in that one moment? Was that your final 3 plan? Was like basically you, Leah, and whoever else, or did you have a specific final 3 plan?
That was my hope, that it would be me, Leah, and someone else in final 3. But I was not willing, and this is going to sound weird because I had someone tell me 2 weeks ago, "You're a liar," and I'm like, "I'm
what?
not a liar?" And they're like, "You said you lied on the game," and I was like, "Oh, Survivor? Oh, never mind."
Yeah, yeah. It's a game.
Yeah, that's a game, but the camaraderie for those groups of people, for that set of individuals, I'm trying to remember when I actually, like, I think I, on the way to tribal council, asked, like, what happens with a tie?
Yeah, you asked me on the way to tribal council.
Yeah, and so at that moment, I'm like, we tie this, and
he still didn't believe that I was actually voting
with him.
I thought I was done.
He was like, no. I was like, I can't believe you really don't think that I'm going to vote with you. And he was like, no, you're not. You're just lying to me. I was like, I can flip it right here, but no,
We've played games together before, though, babe.
We have. We do not play games well together.
Unless we are together.
There you go.
And then we do really decent.
So two last things before we move on here. Number one, what do you think you could have done differently to try to win the game? Obviously, the one obvious thing is you could just win that challenge. But outside of winning the challenge, was there any way that you could have gotten to the Final Four and had an alliance that would get you through to the 3?
I think that Leah and I could have tried to target the other two girls and have them vote for each other, and then we try and control. But I was way more comfortable sending it to Rock Off.
Yeah.
And keeping that alliance intact even after the game.
Sure. So the last thing I had here, it looks like, and we kind of have hinted at this a little bit, but it looks like if you watch the episodes that you really learned the game on the fly and adapted as you were going. So what do you think that how would you say that you like learned the game on the fly or adapted to the way that the game was being played around you throughout the day?
So I had no idea, as you said, in what the game looked like, but I think it's just humanity, like interacting with one another, and so it really is on the fly, regardless of what game plan you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that my ability to kind of read and assess a situation and adapt from that helped me get as far as I did. I don't think that answers the question that you're asking, but it's
no, it gets at the heart of it, you know, what you did that day to kind of like figure it out as you went.
Yeah, I mean I literally played 2 separate games and had a lot of fun doing it on both games.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to our second place player here, Leah. So let's go rewind back to the beginning of the day. My perception, not the day of watching the video, because it's hard to get a feel for what's actually happening with the players when you're in my shoes the day of. But in the video, it looks like you were in control early. Did you feel like you were in control of what was going to happen those first few rounds?
I didn't really feel like I was in control. I've watched the game and stuff, so I felt like I had a little bit more knowledge as to like how things were going to unfold overall.
Mm-hmm.
Team wise, I felt really solid with everybody on my team except for Eli and Drew, just because I'm not like, I know who they are, kind of acquaintance high type thing, but didn't have any real interaction with them. And coming out of the gate, like we like hit it off. And like, I think even Drew said it during one of his exits or something, that I always tried to keep him in the game, like tried to have conversation with him, kind of just try to fill him out type situation.
Yeah.
Eli to me was the main wild card for me, that I never knew what Eli, because and people had said that, okay, Eli's told me this. I'm like, okay, well, Eli and I've had this conversation and it's totally different. So he was always kind of a wild card for me, but I felt like I knew what was going on, but I didn't really feel like I was the one driving.
Sure. Okay, so for Siakam, it was pretty smooth sailing outside of the Bailey vote until you get to the swap. And at that point, you pull the standard unpainted gray rock, and you guys go to Advantage Island when they have the swap. Did you even have time to like really process which of the two groups you wanted to be on, or was it just a matter of like, oh gosh, I have to go do this other game thing? Did you even like really notice the other two groups?
I really didn't.
Yeah.
And I didn't even like get a sense of who, like how it split up or anything like that. Yeah, it was at the time I knew there was an idol out on
at that challenge. Yes.
And I knew where it was. And I was like, oh, great. I can't even play this one. And I can see where both of the idols are. It was underneath the balance beams.
Underneath
on the blocks.
Cinder blocks. So did you just see them, or did Cameron or Eli tell you?
He had told us that there was going to be an idol that was at that point. I think everybody, when they came back from Advantage Island, pretty much just said, okay, hey, this is what happened at Advantage Island.
Yeah.
And nobody thought to keep that information to themselves.
Yeah, I don't know
and
why.
So that one, it's like, there's going to be an idol at this challenge. And I'm like, okay. And I've watched enough Survivor to know that a lot of them, they're under seats where people are sitting, or just random places. And like, we walked out and I was like, oh, I guarantee you that's it. And I even think I told Adrian, hey, Adrian, there's a idol underneath that block. And I think she ended up getting it.
She did get it. I did not know until just now how she knew it was there. So yeah, because I was like, I don't know how Adrian grabbed that. She just grabbed it, because I felt like I hid them well enough that like it wouldn't be obvious unless you were like looking for it. which you were
Oh,
looking for.
I walked out of the barn looking for it.
Yeah, because Eli told you, but I didn't know how
Yeah.
Adrian knew because I didn't think that anyone told her, unless maybe Cameron did. Okay, so well, while we're on that subject, did Annie also told you about the one under the cone, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it was that. I know that got.
Dirty, dirty dog.
I know.
I'm glad we voted her off. 100%. I was so mad. I was so mad.
Yeah.
Might still be. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Well, in that one, even if she hadn't told me, just a matter of being the first person, and had you just like looked down at the cone, there's a hole in the top of the cone,
That's
and you
true.
can see that there was something in the cone. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, there's something in there
Yeah. We tried to like tuck them underneath,
to the side.
so, but
Oh
like
yeah,
you
the
know,
corner.
it's you still
Yeah.
kind of you're gonna see it still. Yeah, that was one of the things we didn't fully process was that we were hiding advantages, and then other people we just assumed y'all wouldn't tell everybody everything, and so but then everyone did. So
People
Open books, my goodness.
I
everyone
was
was
gonna say people who don't
People
know
were
the
asking
play.
me, and I'm like, I don't remember.
yeah.
No, they were telling everything.
So then you get back from Advantage Island, you get onto the new Shibwe tribe, and what what do you think you did? Because it was interesting to me that the targets were being thrown all over the place. Because you had Drew and Mason, Adrian, Moretta, and you. I may be missing somebody, but I think that's it. It was five. It was six people though, so I may be missing somebody. But it felt like they're targeting Drew. They're targeting Mason. Oh, I mean, you had Seth, but I think he had been voted off already. So like it felt like the names are getting thrown everywhere, but I never have really video of them. And like they were targeting Annie. I know Drew and Mason were talking about maybe voting off Annie. It felt like nobody was ever saying your name in this swap. And what do you think that you did that kind of kept it from ever being focused in on you?
That I think is sheer luck because
I don't know
I
about that.
literally have no clue. Because okay, I wasn't like the greatest person at the challenges. Like one of those the
Hmm.
balance beam. Like I was falling off like left and right. Could not get my balance to save my life. And yeah, I really don't know. And I think again that might have just gone back to some of us had a little bit more of a relationship and like a okay. And I think because I think it ended up being the girls that like stuck together and got out
Yes.
Mason on that one. And
Yes.
so
Well, and Drew
it was
voted
kind
with
of
you
like
guys too.
he's an unknown, so we'll just go ahead and get him
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Drew voted with you guys too, but you were able to pull in Moretta even though she wasn't on your original tribe. Because it was you with Annie and Adrian from your original tribe and Drew. And then
Mm-hmm.
you had Mason and Moretta from the other tribe. That's the six. Um, but you were able to pull in Moretta, and then you only had to go tribal council the one time. Well, no, it was twice because the second time was when Drew played the idol and Adrian got voted off. But either in neither of those two situations was it ever on you. And I think it kind of goes to what you were saying about that you had been able to talk to enough different people at different times. Like you mentioned earlier about Drew feeling like he could talk to you and that you always try to loop him in. That people felt like they could work with you and they didn't want to cut that tie because they felt like they could work with you. So then you, after the vote where Adrian gets voted off, you guys have the merge. And did anyone, I'm curious, I don't have any real footage of this. Did anyone like say, hey, we're voting Chris off to you? Or because that's what happened is Chris got voted off. Or were they telling you something different?
Okay, because that all I think it all happened like right after lunch.
Yes.
Nobody wanted to talk at lunch about like everybody was just having like normal side conversations and stuff. And I kept trying to like, okay, do y'all want to go? I even tried to get him. I'm like, okay, do you want to like go talk? Everybody's just talking about like, oh yeah, the weather's great and school's going awesome. And I'm like, how are we not doing anything? And so I honestly think him was like a super fast, like, oh, hey, we're having tribal here in just a few minutes. And we're like, oh, okay. And somebody was like, okay, let's get Chris out. Like, he's like
Yeah.
going to be really good at challenges and getting us all out. It's just like, nobody else would talk about anything. So I was
Okay.
like,
My name on that paper.
I don't remember who else.
I
I might have.
I can
don't remember.
I can double check that, but I don't remember right now.
I really don't, because I don't even remember
Yeah.
who the other option was, unless we were trying to get Drew at that point. But I don't think we had tried to get Drew yet.
So you both have kind of talked about a little bit of the like obviously as a spouse, you have somewhat of a built-in alliance, but also as like kind of fun to be like, I voted my spouse. Like there is competitive nature. There is like, whatever. So were you happy that Chris got back into the game, or were you like, oh, this is a big target on my back?
No, I was really glad that he got back in because
Yeah.
I knew he would have fun he was having fun doing it. And
Yeah.
I think at the same time, like he was learning the game on the fly and he had gotten a little bit better at it, I guess would be the way to say. Not
Yeah.
really better.
Speak anymore.
No, because like I think you really were trying to fly too far under the radar to start off. And had you come out with like a not like full throttle, but a little bit pulled back instead of just like all the way relaxed mode, I think it would have been a little bit different.
Yeah.
It was ultra relaxed.
Yeah.
So Chris mentioned the best class alliance and in the well, I mentioned it, but he mentioned the fact that he talked to Adrian before he got back into the game, and which totally part of the game. When were you looped in as a part of that? When did you learn about this? Because he had this plan outside of you. He had a plan with Adrian. So when did they bring you in? And were you like, okay, great? Or were you like forced into it?
I promise you, there's no footage of it.
There's
It
not.
was so funny because I don't remember what that vote was, but he got back in the game. We were doing something, and like we hadn't talked at all, and it was literally like we were passing each other somewhere, and he literally walks past me and goes, "Best class alliance till the end, no questions asked," and just kept walking, and I was like, "Okay."
So it
Makes
wasn't
sense to me.
so
Okay.
it wasn't too different than from what happened with when Mason when they voted off Seth, he like walked past Moretta on the tribal council, was like, we're voting Seth, and she said okay, and they did it. So it was kind of like that, you're saying.
Yeah.
So I did just check the tape. Leah did vote for Chris,
I probably
but
said I'm sorry though.
probably.
That makes it all better.
I mean, hey, you got back into the game, and then she didn't vote you off at the time it mattered more. So you did
Too
not
many people here trying to vote you off.
Yeah, you had to cover you. I get it.
You did not ultimately vote Chris out the second time, but did you ever like consider it before that final four? Like, did you ever think I'd have to vote him out?
It probably had gone through my mind just because I know how competitive he is. And I knew at the end when it got to the, okay, submit your case as to why you should win, he can talk circles around me. And I knew that would probably get me because even once we got to the end, I was like, okay, if the two of us get to the end with somebody else, he can seriously out talk all of us and probably make a better case than me or Adrian or Moretta, no matter who got up there.
Sure.
But in the end, I was like, this is too much fun trying to get to the end with him. So
yeah.
I think that if we would have had a vote on the final four, I could have beaten all three in the final four if we had instead of just three.
I think you could keep going back, Chris. Like, I mean, I think after you get, I think other than Drew, I think after you vote Drew off, I think it's like, that's why
Drew and his infinite number of idols that nobody knew he had.
I think Drew was the only. I mean, you can make arguments about early game. It seemed like you were deliberately, but it seemed like you were a little more scattered. But once you came back in, it was like, oh, he's gunning for people, and you were winning challenges that you've seen. It felt like as an observer who wasn't in the conversations, it felt like you probably needed to win some of those, and you were. So I was always kind of like, well, hopefully he will not lose if he wants to win, or else he's not. But he ended up getting to the final four without winning a couple rounds. There's two that you did not win. So Leah, you did play the idol at final five. It feels like you maybe didn't need to play it. Did you feel like that maybe not like having it could have left some possibility for people to vote you off?
There's always a possibility. Everybody can always flip on a dime. At that point, I think we were strong enough. And I think the only reason I really played it is because that was the last time I could have played it. So it was like, okay, well, I at least had this the whole time and managed to keep up with it.
It was interesting because there was some conversations that I just watched a little while ago between Cameron and Adrian, where it seemed like they were both kind of like, maybe we should try to do something, but Leah has an idol. And so I just thought, who knows, maybe if he didn't have the idol, they would have had to flip Moretta. But if they could have flipped Moretta, then anything could have happened at that point. So again, we talked about a few times that you have not voted Chris. They didn't vote Chris out at Final Four, but Moretta and Adrian were under the impression that you had a final three with them from the get-go. Was that always a lie, or did that change at some point in time in the game?
They were the ones that like came up and like started that. Or like, okay, hey, can we go ahead and do a final three and let's get Chris out and just have a girls, like solid girls. And I'm just kind of like, okay, sure, like that's what you want to think. Yeah, we'll go with that until it doesn't work.
So really, your plan was always to try to go with Chris.
To try to, yeah.
Yeah. So your ideal final three would have been like you, him, and just anybody else, basically. Okay, so then I guess the last question I have, obviously you did really well overall, getting 3 of the total, I think 11 votes, put you in second place. What do you think you would have had to have done differently to win?
Probably if I had won like some immunity, other than the one that I just found, I didn't win any like of the challenges or anything like that.
Yeah.
And if I could have had him speak for me, he also said that he's like, I probably could have lobbied for you a little bit better than I did with the jury, which that would probably have helped me. But I'm not a good salesman at all.
Rookie mistake on my part, because I felt like I could have made a much harder, like if you watch the final, it's like, oh, it was fun. We had like, it was real, like kind of camaraderie building. And I, for whatever reason, because I was out of the game, I didn't think, oh, help Leah win. Like, so she was absolutely in control of the game. And I think that it had that been sold a little stronger for the jurors, like to say, she thought that, like, she had the 2 girls convinced she was voting out her own husband. And she flipped. You remember the shock on Adrian and Moretta's face.
They were actually shocked.
When we went to rock off, that's her doing.
Yeah.
So I felt like I could have sold her a little bit more, because it was. There's not a me in the final 4 without her.
Yeah. I've seen it happen multiple different times where it feels like it's a really long day, I know. So it feels like a lot of times we get to the end of the day, whether it's jury members or just the final 3, you feel like that relief of like, oh, we made it. Like I made it to the end, and you kind of like exhale,
closure,
and you stop, and there's like, no, wait a minute, you still have to like plead your case. This one last thing you have to do. And as an outside observer, again, who like wasn't in all the conversations, didn't have a full awareness of what was happening, it felt like it was going to be between you and Moretta, which it was mostly. Adrian still did get a vote, but I felt like all 3 of you in the final 3 left a little bit on the table at that final tribal council, which I think is a common thing. Again, you're 10, 11 hours into the day playing this game, and I know that's tiring. So I think it was pretty awesome that you got that far, and it did feel like on the outside, as Chris said, that the relationships that you had, the strategic relationships that you were like continuously like talking to people and being a part of conversations and doing that. I think that's a big reason why you were there and why you got votes in the first place. So that's pretty awesome. You guys both had a great game, and I think that's all the questions I have. So thanks again for coming in and talking for a little bit with us.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.